Hello and welcome back to another episode of Mandela Madness. I'm your host, Nick.
Has the power to change the world. It has the power to inspire. It has the power to unite people in a way that little else does.
I've been really busy researching for part 2 of the method behind the madness, and in doing so I came across a YouTuber named Nobleness D. His big thing is talking about geography and how it's changed from what he remembers. A lot of his videos are just really long screen cap videos of him narrating certain points of maps of how he remembers it being and how it is now. He talks a lot about things moving or changing with very little actual backup. But you see, if the Mandela effect is real, you can't back up your claims because reality has been changed. That is the trump card in every argument, and he uses this to great effect with his videos. So every now and again he stumbles across what the community dubs residue, where they find something that matches the reality that they came from. And he does this in one of his videos where he finds a map of Axis and Allies, in which he states this is where he first started looking at maps, and this is what he recalls maps from.
I've spent a lot of time when I was younger playing Axis and Allies and Risk, and many hours looking at the world map, playing those games. And, part of what helped me learn the world map.
And he also does state that the map has been augmented as well.
And of course, it is just a game. And even when I was younger, it was clear that the map was a little augmented in order to fit the game.
Despite all these facts, he still uses this map to form the points that he wants to make. And he casts out the other arguments that the map presents because they don't really fit the narrative he's trying to build in his videos. Any changes that don't fit the reality that he came from, he just kind of marks down to being changes to fit the game's purpose.
Directly down from the center of Nova Scotia should be just a little, like pre-Mandela, it should be just a pinch in on Brazil. It's almost right there. Absolutely beautiful. I love it. The UK, in this game, the UK is directly up and down. Yeah, this here part of the Mediterranean's obviously kind of bubbled up, but likely just the game, that's fine.
One could simply use that exact same argument back at all of the points that you've made. See, the trouble is here that if you're going to accept evidence from a source, you have to kind of take it all or leave it all. You can't pick and choose. It's not cherry picking here. I bring this point up because he uses his flawed logic very heavily in a video that came out on Christmas Eve of last year, titled Mandela, Best Map Residue Ever, Exxon Oil Proof Effect. Let's take a look.
So it's the season that people have and receive wonderful things, so I thought I'd bring you guys something for the season. And I just recently drove 5,000 kilometers across the country. Epic, I must say. And I walked in the door of first stop, my parents' house, and there's an atlas sitting on the table. This atlas right here. And I just take one glance at it, and I see North and South America. And I go over and I stand over it for a good 2 or 3 minutes just gazing at it, kind of heartbroken.
Nobleness D's opinion, or the reality that he remembers, and he stipulates this a lot throughout all of his videos, is that the continent of South America should be more in line with the continent of North America.
Newfoundland, Labrador, and then Nova Scotia here. Directly down from the center of Nova Scotia should be just a little, like pre-Mandela, it should be just a pinch in on Brazil. It's almost right there. Absolutely beautiful. I love it.
It's a very ignorant assumption to come to the conclusion that just because something that you remember being one way now appears a different way, that you came from a parallel universe. I've already spoken in a past video about just how fragile the human memory can be. So rather than dredge up that whole argument again, I'm going to take a different approach, and I'm going to reference a video here by a channel named Vox, which was released last Christmas. And that video was named Why All the World Maps Are Wrong. It's a very well thought out and informative video. I really recommend that you check this out if it interests you after this. I'll leave a link in the description below. It's really worth a look.
In order to get this globe to look anything close to a rectangle lying flat, I've had to cut it in several places. I've had to stretch it so that the countries are starting to look all wonky.
But at 1 minute 19 into the video, they actually display a version of the map named the hammer projection. This itself is also quite similar to the Mollyweed projection. And there's a further map projection named the Schoening projection, which is quite interesting to look at. This particular one is a conical projection rather than a cylindrical projection. This was actually invented in 1882, and the really interesting thing about this, because a few other affected people touch on this, is that if you look at a copy of that map, Australia actually looks like it's further south than New Zealand. But if you follow the longitudinal lines, it indicates that New Zealand is actually further south than the continent. Now, Google Map uses the Mercator projection, as Vox explains in their video, and Nobleness D uses Google Maps as a reference point for all of his changed effects that he finds in all of his videos. I'll admit that I haven't watched all of his content, but when I have watched the videos where he's referencing maps, I've never heard him state to his audience that there are different types of projections of maps that do stretch or screw the continents to match what kind of object they're projected onto. Again, if you want to know what I'm talking about, watch the video from Vox.
So this is actually a atlas from 1977 and came from my grandmother's house originally. And it just so happens that I used to look at this atlas when I was a young child, in around 7 years old or so. And I spent a lot of time. I love this. As I said, I know maps pretty good.
So he's talking the talk right now. He knows maps pretty good, so we're going to have to take his word for it.
So eventually, a few hours later, I open this atlas. What I find is not a part of the atlas, but it is in the atlas. What I find is this pamphlet. I'm kind of like, that's odd. That looks familiar. Yes, it is. It would be. The reason being, I'm the one who left this in the atlas at 7 years old.
God, this is like a really boring version of Interstellar. When I was 7, I used to eat Tuck's dog biscuits in the cupboard under the stairs. I don't know why I did it either, but boy, if my hair and teeth weren't the shiniest and strongest they've ever been.
I did so because there's a map inside, and a map belongs in the atlas. And man, am I happy I left it here. So this is approximately from 1975. And when I open this and I turn it, look at what I find.
Fucking great. Smoking gun right here, guys.
This, my friends, is absolutely wonderful in my books. And so this isn't a real map, no. But what this is a map.
For someone who claims to know maps pretty good, I find it interesting that you don't know that what you're looking at here is actually called a cartogram. A cartogram is an image that's based off a map, but it changes the portions of countries to match the subject that they're trying to portray. So, for instance, you've got one that looks at oil, here's one that looks at world populations and has changed the sizes of countries to match the populations that each country has. Here's another one that looks at organic horticulture farming. I tried to find a third funny one like STIs or something like that, but unfortunately no one has committed the research to make such a thing yet.
Is a picture depicting oil reserves by size using a map-like picture, which is exactly why it wasn't changed.
So he's claiming that when reality changed, this is like going back to my first episode that I made of Mandela Madness, full disclosure, that somebody's using a quantum computer to hack reality, and that when they hacked reality, they moved the continent, and then they updated all the maps, but because this is a pamphlet and not a map, it was missed, right? Like somebody just read a script that was like, locate maps, move continent, latitude 2, and there was no exception report come up that said, hey, we've found what's potentially a map or a cartogram, do you want to update? And the half-assed employee, like, they're not Starbucks employees. These, if there, even if there is such a thing as a reality hacker, they're not going to do a half-assed job like what you're claiming. They'll do it right first time. I don't even know why we're talking about this right now. We could be making a cartogram about which country has the most STIs. But no, we're talking about this.
And if you look, there it is. That is a beautiful, beautiful thing right there in my books. I don't know about you guys, but that is the best thing anybody could receive for the season.
Oh my gosh, you did it, did you? No way, what? Oh man, this is... I can't believe... Is it what I think it is? Is this... Oh my god.
Man,
I
is
can't
that
believe
beautiful.
you knew that I wanted How did you know?
Absolutely
This
beautiful. I love that.
This is like the best gift I could ever get.
That is the
I
best
can't
thing
believe you thought
anybody
to
could
give me
receive
this pen.
for the season.
This is great. This is fantastic.
So clearly we have South America where it's supposed to be, pretty much directly underneath North America. And we have also some sort of depiction of Europe.
How did you just pronounce that?
Europe.
It's Europe, you wanker. Oh, sorry, I'm getting too into this.
And the other interesting part I found on this was Indonesia.
I find that really interesting as well. I didn't know Indonesia had any oil reserves. Why isn't America at war with Indonesia?
So, there's South America and North America. And currently today, this is our North America and South America. As many of you know, basically directly under Florida is the west coast of South America. Now, one of the parts I'd like to focus in on is where the Yucatan Peninsula comes up and comes, you know, pretty close to Florida.
Yeah, it's like 1,000 kilometers away from each other. I know that's only 1/5 of what you drove to get to where you are when you made this video, but it still is a pretty fucking substantial size. You could take the island I'm sitting on right now and plonk it right in there, and there'd still be a bit of a gap on either end to have a swim.
You see how wide open the Gulf is? This is the way I remember it.
Oh yeah, I remember the coastline was pretty much just a direct line from fucking Colombia all the way down to Brazil. No bays, no bluffs, just sand in a straight line.
This is the way it was. I am convinced of that.
Yep, and Canada was just a fucking spanner as well. Notice how he skipped over that whole little detail.
I know maps quite well. As I mentioned, I was gazing at maps when I was 7 years old.
Yes, but you really need to hold yourself accountable. You can't just hold on to ideas or conclusions that you reached with the intellect of a 7-year-old and carry them through to your adult life. This is why I don't eat dog biscuits anymore. You can't honestly say that your 7-year-old mind is a reliable source to draw every single detail of the globe with clarity, or even your mind from 2 years ago, or even your mind from last week. That's not how memory works. There is a big difference between gazing at a map and trying to recall those details and then actually having a coherent knowledge of how the globe is actually structured, which is evidenced in almost every single video that you make. And if there is a video where you've forgotten how it has been in the past, you claim that your video has even changed. Come on, man. Anyway, for the remainder of this video, Nobleness D basically goes and looks at Great Britain, the position of Italy, as well as looking at Indonesia's landmass composition. So instead of looking at those details, I just want to really close off this video with 3 last points. For point the first, he looks at the position of Italy and Britain and the orientation that they're at and takes that to be residue, which backs up his point.
There's kind of a concept of what Italy should be. I know that is a bit of a stretch.
But then when he's confronted of the awkward shape of the Mediterranean, he actually admits,
I know this isn't very, it's pretty much a half-ass map, no doubt, but nonetheless.
So how can you draw facts from this that support your argument but dismiss anything else? If it's a half-assed map, it's a half-assed map, and you can't use it for your argument unless you want to have a half-assed argument. The second point is that you would lend a lot more credibility to the claim that you know maps pretty good if you could actually get the names of the places on the map right, especially when they're staring you right in the face.
And currently, we have India cocked way back, as a few people have mentioned on the internet. They don't remember Italy being that far back.
My third and final point of this is, and this is me just being really picky, but maybe you could put an actual ending onto your videos rather than letting them end like this.
Unique in its shape, and I didn't. I don't know how it is now, if it's a handful of different small islands put together, land come up from below. I don't know for sure, but I can tell you that this was not in my memory and was new to me. So currently what we have nowadays, we have...
Anyway, that's all from me for today. I just wanted to put this video out there. There's a lot more content coming in this regard, so keep an eye out for the next Mandela Madness episode, which will be part 2 of the method behind the madness. My parting message to all of you out there is don't take for granted anything somebody tells you in a YouTube video, including myself. I hold myself accountable to that standard as well. Do your own research, follow your own instinct. Don't listen to your ego, because that is just going to land you in the same trouble as all the rest of these Mandela affected people. And also, have a good fucking day.